It's interesting to be sitting here in front of an incredible statue of Padmasambhava. And my entire spiritual practice started with the entryway being Tibetan Buddhism. I had read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or at least the original translations that were made by Timothy Leary, what became Baba Ramdas, and then Richard Alpert. They were very big guides to the spiritual experience. After my LSD trip, the only reference point I had to what I had experienced was something akin to Tibetan's idea of the Book of the Dead, what it means to die. And that I had probably experienced something very much akin to that. And thought I was dead. After a very long and terrible dealing with horrible sense of loss and the loss of every bit of memory and thought of who I was and every molecule of my body and mind. And then I was gone, and then suddenly I was reborn. Interesting story, not to be repeated again and again, but I came back, and the reference point was Tibetan Buddhism. I ended up reading the Bhagavad Gita, thought that was very instructive, and spent time in India, but my first place was a Tibetan monastery in Kathmandu, very much like this room. And I lived in a Tibetan monastery for 2 months, and then the Nepalese government said, "We would like you to leave the country, you have 2 days." And I was kicked out of the country because nobody knew what I was doing there. In those days, there weren't a lot of Westerners living in Tibetan monasteries. But my definition of the spiritual realm was definitely formed by these guys, who knew something more than I did, and who learned it from Buddha, and listened to Buddha's teachings, became practitioners of Buddha's teachings, spread them widely into the world. Amazingly beautiful, exquisite teachings. But Buddha had no Buddha teachings. He had nothing he could read. There was no one to teach him the Buddhist way of life. His journey was not through Buddhism. His journey was into himself for 6 years under a tree, and all the stuff that comes out of that. And he had been a prince, and he walked away from all of that, and he became the Buddha. These guys studied with him and had an awakening similar to his awakening under the Bodhi tree, and had great awareness, which they were able to share with the world, and I was one of the lucky recipients of that. And of all the other mystical teachings that have come into the world through so many different teachers and forms, and they all taught about something bigger and greater, some oceanic space of being that was much more in the unmanifested universe than the manifested world we live in, although they were very much part and parcel of one another. And they had theories and ideas and thoughts, and they codified all of that, and it all became a part of knowledge. And we became, those of us who read those things, became wise in the way of those teachings. And you get to a point, everybody at a different point maybe, where you go, I get it. Or you have a sense of, this is the world. This is the spiritual journey. This is how it works. These are the forms, the contextual realizations that one needs to be a meditator, a spiritual Buddhist, Hindu, Jewish, Christian, whatever practitioner of an inward journey. But what happens then is this very extraordinary journey into oneself comes back into the world in a form that fits your mindful description of well, this is how Buddha would have put it, or this is how Krishna would have put it, or this is how Jesus would have put it. We find a formula that's out there often and put it into that space. But like I said, Buddha didn't go in and come back with a teaching of Buddhism. If anything, maybe a Hindu practice of sorts, was a Hindu awareness, but he certainly wasn't a Buddhist. But his acknowledgement of a structure and his teaching became wedded to many, many people as a kind of canopy of how it really is. This is how it is. And I'm not going to say it's not how it is, because I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that Jesus and Krishna and everybody else didn't see infinite truth and find a way to try to describe it to people. But the problem with grasping, knowing, touching, enfolding infinite truth into the form of your life in a way that allows you to go, oh, I get it, is problematic for me. And it's problematic because in this oceanic space that I occasionally get to witness with enormous gratitude, dissolves all that. Just takes it away. And I get to see something that has no explanation. And there's no way to fit it into any contextual story, really. I mean, you can if you want. If you want to come back and apply it to somebody else's version, but really it's you. It's your journey. It's your experience of the self without any kind of descriptors. And it's an extraordinary thing to witness and then come back and try to not formulate it. Try to not say, this is how it is. This is the truth. This is the teaching. Or to put it into somebody else's context and say, that is how it works. To try to come back from all of that and basically not know the answers, not have a context, except that it is at the center of your being in some way. Center may be the wrong word. Maybe it's in the right corridor of your being or the left corridor. I don't know. But it's really way deep inside. There is this, and I like the word knowing, but I think the word being is better because there's no ownership. There is this being that is there. And that being is way deep, way expansive, it seems. Again, I'm giving it context. And it appears to have manifested all of this. The stories that we tell each other and tell ourselves about who we are in our life, and we were born in this family, and we were born in this religion, and we have this contextual understanding of the world, tries to take the infinite and make it finite. And I think what is starting to really happen more and more in the teaching that I'm doing is try to say, stop that. You don't need to know. You don't need to grasp it. You don't need to put it into a contextual form. It simply is. And in some way which I do not understand, you are it. We are it. Period. The not knowing drops a lot of baggage. And you know, this word enlightenment is easy to use, and it seems like having something, like having an awareness, having achieved something. But the more I play with that arena, the more I sense that enlightenment is letting go of knowing everything. Everything. It's lighter when you don't know. It doesn't affect your being. Your being is still there, but it doesn't hold anything. But it seems to manifest, this is just contextualizing in a way, but it seems to manifest a kind of, an awareness. I would even use these words, forgive me because they're blocking it in, but it seems to offer love and insight and clarity and comfort and awareness And it seems to be more about being than anything else. Now, when it comes into play with the world, in this manifested form, it transforms into doing. And so it starts to be about, you've got to earn a living, and you've got to care for people, and you've got to take care of business and do all that kind of stuff. But if you keep balancing that extra outer effort of being in the world with being inside, you find that there's a kind of phenomenal balance. And Rudy seemed to be a wonderful exponent of that balance. How you work in the world, and he used the word work all the time, how you work in the world reflects the insight, the balance, the harmony of the inner vision, the inner journey. Rudy contextualized it to a degree. He taught it in Hindu terms and Buddhist terms, and he was Jewish, and all these other elements of storytelling, and we all imbibed all of that. But what I'm telling you is, for whatever it's worth, and you don't have to deal with this on any level, but I'm just telling you, there comes a point in this journey we're all on where the story is limiting. It starts to disrupt truth. It starts to take truth and put it into such a small bottle. And why? Because it's comforting for the outer person. It's comforting for the body and the mind. But all I'm saying is let it out of the bottle. Don't know. It doesn't change the equation. If anything, you become a kinder, simpler being. And you walk around in the world as that, but not with preacher mentality, not with this is how it is. You really try to let it dissolve. And I'll tell you why that's valuable. Because at the end of your life, I am projecting, and this is storytelling, but I'm projecting it all goes away. And it kind of requires you to do something Rudy teaches at the center of his practice, which is let go, surrender, let it go. And what I discover in myself and in most people I know is they're not good at letting go. They let go to the point of bodily comfort, mental comfort. I got the answer. I let go of the falseness of life. Now I have the truth. But I'm telling you, once you have that, you're locked in to that particular structure of truth. And because I'm now of an age where I don't have a lot more time in the practice of letting go, I am working at it. Maybe that's the wrong approach, but it is happening faster and faster. And what is being lost in a way is all the things I knew. And I have to tell you, I don't miss any of it at all. None of it. It is so amazing to not know. I mean, there are certain things you do hold on to. There are certain things you feel connected to. If anything, my connection to Blanche is greater than it has ever been for me, because the love that pours through is so beyond. And you witness what is real and beautiful in your life, and you give yourself to that. In a way, it takes you. It does it for you. You have to do less and less than you might imagine. My life now is water the plants, feed the fish, play with some photographs that I play with, be loving to my wife, talk to my children, my grandchildren, and I guess do these classes. It's fine. It's a wonderful structure. It's nothing like what used to be. There was a very big, involved life, and I could have gotten very cemented into being the whoever it was I was projected to be in my earlier life, and it had a lot of kind of recognition to it, but it never registered. It does not register for me, and it has just fallen out of the picture. It's just like my past life is gone. I still love my mom and dad and my cousins and my siblings. There's all of that, but it doesn't inform the day-to-day life. My day-to-day life is wake up. Period. Wake up. Breakfast. It's so simple. It's so simple. And as you get older and your career falls away and your loved ones are not always ready to go into dinner with you, and I mean, there's all these other things that just aren't happening. What is happening? welcome to this, whatever this is. And if you try to put it into a box of what's missing, what should have been, what it could have been, why didn't it turn out this way, when do I become that, or, you know, if you're still looking for goals and all of that stuff, then this end-of-life drama that people go through is horrible. It's just horrible. It's just filled with what-ifs. And my experience right now is the opposite. My experience is this. I'm learning more now than I've ever learned in my spiritual journey. I want to share it because, you know, I always think I could be gone in 10 minutes. So I keep wanting to put it out there for any of you who want to know it. But what's happening for me right now is really interesting. It's like I am on a acid trip. And you can call it a bad acid trip because it is the death trip. I am on the death trip. But what I realized the other day was this is not like an acid trip, and it's not like a death trip. You are dying. You are getting old. You are in the end game right now. And all the stuff I remember going through on LSD, going, no, 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 it can't happen, in heaven and hell, and all the things that were going on in my poor brain, and all of my disconnections that were taking place through the drug, you know, it's really happening. This really is that. I really am learning how to die and being taken apart, and I am learning that there are still parts of me that go, still frightened, and then there are parts of me that are going, thy will be done. Now what's really interesting is that on the good days, I am in a place of bliss and joy like I have never experienced ever in my life, and I wish it on everybody in a way. And then they take it all away. And then life looks like it was a bad game, like a punishment or something weird. I mean, everything disappears. No meaning, no purpose, no value, emptiness, horrifying. And so, as I think I've explained to you before, if you join the bliss game, which is wonderful and you'll love it, be prepared for its opposite. Because when they take it away, there you are with nothing. When you start to look at both in a detached, open way and realize yin and yang and both occur, what you start to do is go, you don't grab hold of one and you don't grab hold of the other, you just open. It is an amazing journey. And all I want to do is share that with you so that when you start to arrive at the point when the retirement has happened and you're done, you can't play another game of golf and you can't do another bridge game or watch another episode of God knows what on television, when you're just staring at this thing, that you go, it's really important teaching. And it can have Buddhist context, and I suppose it can have Hindu context and Jewish and Christian context, and you can look at it that way. But the problem with all of that is it still locks you into a framework that will, I believe, be taken away from you. And you don't want it to be taken away in a way that makes you feel that you failed or you did something wrong. You don't do anything wrong. It all goes away. It is impermanent. Not some of this is impermanent. All of this is impermanent. Every bit of it, as far as I know. You know, you can all look at me and go, oh, God, what does he know? This is just another story. I know, it could be just another story. But my experience that I want to share so deeply, and here in the Rudy's classroom, which it remains for me, Rudy's classroom in so many ways, I want to share the story that maybe Rudy would have told us when he hit 90 or 100, which might have been similar words, maybe not. But I think he would have said, do the work, open, surrender, let go, and don't stop. And watch what happens when they take the last fragments of your being, of your story, of your certainty, of your sense of how it works and what it is and what it's supposed to be, and watch it go away, including the whole idea of life on Earth, the whole idea of being on a planet, the whole idea of being born and dying, all of it, starting to go away. And what's left? For you to find out. and not to become a Buddhist and have Buddha tell you, or a Bruceist and have Bruce tell you, or anybody else. You're going to find out. Trust me, you will. And it will be an easy passage or a not easy passage. And a lot of people have been coming up to me recently saying how they haven't seen my movie Jacob's Ladder. And Jacob's Ladder, in many ways, is what we're talking about here. And it's a story of a man learning about everything I'm saying on some level. And there's a great teaching in it that comes from the 16th century, from Meister Eckhart, in which he says, if you're afraid of dying, you will see demons tearing you from the flesh, and if you're open to dying, they will become angels, freeing you from the earth. It's all how you see it. All I'm telling you is just what he said. Angels and demons are the same thing. It's all the same thing, and it's all a story you tell yourself. And the best thing you can possibly do in this spiritual practice is let go, let go, let go, and be who you are, which happens to be, as you may discover, story-wise or not story-wise, pretty eternal and infinite. It's like, and there's no you in it to go, hey, look, look at me, I am infinite. It's not like that. If you do that, you're going to be totally lost in the game. There is no ownership at all. There is just give it over, give it back to its own source. And the source is who and what you are, and this is the ride we are on. And I share this with you, and probably will continue doing versions of this for however long I get to talk, because it feels like it's important to share. It just feels like this is the ride. One thing I know for certain is it ends, or it appears to, and we all have a limited time, and we're all going to have to figure out some existential way to deal with a finality, end of story, end of meaning and purpose, which is a big deal. I'm telling you, when they start to take meaning and purpose away, it's very threatening, because that's what you've got. It means something. It's about something. It really isn't. And it really doesn't. But it is really potent to start to see that. And so I'm just giving you an insight and a hint of what may be to come, and it could all be just Bruce's storytelling. And if it is, sorry, I apologize. And it may have been Rudy's storytelling, but I can't predict what story he would have told. All I know is here we are. This is, I don't know, maybe the last time I teach here, or maybe just the beginning of a whole series of summer lectures and gatherings. I have no clue. But I do know, talk from the moment, talk about what seems to me to be arriving in a big way. And what's arriving for me is that you don't know anything, and it's not bad to not know. Trust me. Or don't. I really don't care. But I do feel led to share this. And it's not, let me just say, this is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Giving up knowing, giving up on having a structure, giving up certainty is not a bad thing. It is liberating. It frees you. You may not know what you have. You may not be able to put anything into context, but what you do have is, and it's like, wow. Who knew that sitting down and feeding koi and goldfish and carp for 20 minutes could be a highlight of your life? Never did that cross my mind. I can't wait to get home and feed my fish. And I water the plants. I hear them smiling and going, thank you. They like to be watered, they like to be sprayed, they like to be touched. It is amazing. Never in my life was that part of my journey. I did not expect it. I now am a very grateful person who has been allowed to wake up to the simplicity of this life that we're in, and to share it with those of you who want to have it shared. Someone said to me today that my whole talk today should just be ditto, which was an implication that I talk way too much and for way too long, and I totally buy that, and I apologize to all of you for whom this is overkill, and I am going to stop. But I want you to know something wants to be spoken. It's getting spoken. Do with it as you will. I just love you guys so much. This energy loves you so much. The I that's speaking has some Bruce in it, but there's a lot of other stuff in it as well, and it cares about you dramatically. And it cares that you brought yourself to this table, that you came to this space, that you went through whatever discomforts may have been there to drive, to come up to Big Indian and be here to celebrate Rudy, Padmasambhava, each other. The totality is all here. And we are people who have given ourselves over to a search. It's time to find, and the finding is not anything you can hold on to, but it's worth discovering. The end. Okay. And then he asks for questions.
I guess the question is a little involved as I think about it. But your quote from Meister Eckhart, what I find comforting is the material that talks about what does happen after death. There's a lot of people with near-death experiences who are talking about this, very expedient. And there's a little book called After the Change Called Death. I'm trying to remember the author, but he's in back. Which is channeled material. The channel was alive, and she was channeling a person with the sky, and it gives an amazingly positive picture of what.
Who wants that picture?
Excuse me?
Who wants that picture?
Now I'm embarrassed to admit that I did.
Well, of course. And we all do. We all want the heaven and hell, the transcendent, the awakened, the enlightened.
But I understand from Meister Eckhart that it can go either way.
Well, let me take both of them out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
Neither or. Neither but. The idea of wanting to know that is an ownership thing. Who wants that information? The person who wants that information is I'm not going to say that, I would say the problem, but it's the obstacle. And the thing that wants to get washed out of the equation is that. Once that goes, you'll find out. Actually, you won't find out. You will be it. And if you do find out, it probably won't be fun. Or maybe the heavenly realms will take over. Look what I have, look what I have. But I'm telling you, based on my experience with bliss and misery and despair, is they're both owned. And they're both owned by something that can't survive, even possibly after death. So if you go to the heavenly realms, and they all say the heavenly, well, they don't, the Christians don't say heavenly realms. Christians say they're for eternal. Many Buddhists say they're temporary. You go to heaven, you have a great time, you celebrate the wonderful life you had, and then you go back on the wheel. That's the Buddhist idea of this. Better to be Christian and go there forever, whatever that is. Or better than going to hell forever, right? Even in the Buddhist terms, hell is temporary. It's working stuff out. But it's all story. It's all story. And the part of you, and not you alone, because trust me, I'm getting this from all over the place, most people want a story and a belief and a hope and an idea of what will happen to them. And all I can tell you is there will be no them at some point. And that's really the journey. The journey is into becoming, being, and then dissolving and going. As far as I know, and again, my story could just be another story and forget it. But the lessons that I appear to be experiencing, that I'm sharing, and they really take them or not, is the you that wants a story will not survive. Tricky. It's very tricky, and you don't even begin to understand how attached you are to that until it starts to, I need it to be this way. I need to feel good about it. What do you mean you need to feel good about it? I will tell you, I get it. I would like also to feel good about it, but my feeling is there won't be anybody there to feel that as such. But there will be, maybe, story, don't know. Oh, like clarity of some kind that may not be owned by anything, but may be cosmologically infinite. Well, a story, but it's an interesting story, and I do know that we are not going to be around as an entity, individualized. That I'm pretty sure of, somewhere in the ground or sprinkled somewhere. But you know, you're not going to be there to enjoy it as such, but will there be survival in a way? You don't want to know the answer? This is where it is. When you start to touch the infinite existence within, all your answers come up. But they're not going to be formulated. They're not going to be, oh yeah, that's how it's not going to, it's like, forget that. They're just going to be, I can't even describe them, like of course. And you know, if you want to feel good, it's probably going to be pretty amazing. You know, I mean, maybe beyond amazing. Anyone else?
Something that kind of I've been experiencing in my spiritual journey is, it's like a lot of deconstruction of those stories and like religion and societal, you know, norms and constructs, and there's been a major deconstruction, and there's like a lot of fiery rage in there. It's almost like the walls are being burned down, and I'm okay with it. I don't talk to too many people about it. It makes people very uncomfortable. But I just wondered if you know, how you've worked with it, if you've experienced anything like that.
Sure. I have. And you know, I mean, all I have to do is read the newspaper.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to know fiery rage, you lived on Maui, no?
The Big Island.
Oh, the
I
Big
was in
Island,
the
yeah.
volcano
Yeah, okay,
eruption,
so
yeah.
all I'm,
Feels like Pele's moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all I'm saying is there are very, very potent, painful, dark forces. And I've said this to people today, I used to think a spiritual life would save me from pain and suffering. And it does not do that. I am not any more special than any other being in a body. It all goes on. But I have been learning a little bit, and I'm not going to say I'm all that practiced, to go, you know, I don't sleep for a fourth night in a row for whatever reason. I go, instead of cursing the world, I go, this is learned. I learned by going, what Rudy teaches, surrender, open, accept, because there's nothing you can do about a lot of this stuff. You can, I mean, if you look at the newspapers, you know, and the TV ads and social media, they're going to give you 1,000 things you can do about sleep issues and pain issues and fear issues and anxiety and all that kind of stuff. You know, you're not going to escape it. You're going to probably come down with some of it. A lot of what's happening cosmologically and in fact just in the world itself right now, in the social media of the world, is terrifying. And people are taking it personally. And they're imbibing it and making it theirs, my problem. They don't even think of it as being caused by all that other stuff. But we are in a very delicate moment. There are ways of trying to tell positive stories with, you know, artificial intelligence maybe saving this. And I mean, there's a lot of things, a lot of stories. I'm a storyteller. Of course, I will try to think of stories that will, you know, we'll find nuclear fusion that will start to make the whole world electrically sound, and we won't have to do fossil fuels and things like that. Yeah, all this stuff kind of can happen, but we are facing so much stuff, and if you identify with all of it, and we're human, so God knows we do, but if you identify with all of it, you imbibe it, and then if you have a spiritual practice, you sit in your heart, and now you have to really do the work. You sit and you go inside because there's a lot of stimulation outside, and you go, please help me to surrender. You open the door and they go, come on in, and they go, it's okay, honey. It's okay, honey. It's okay. And you go, oh. Yes, the world will dissolve, maybe. Yes, your body is going to go. Yes, you're going to not be here at some point, but you're not the only one. And this has gone on from the beginning of time, and nothing is permanent. Impermanence. And yes, we are fearful of that, but there is something within us that goes, I love you. At least that's my experience. If you go inside and you get, I hate you and you're a horrible piece of shit and you're not worth anything, trust me, that's a ride you got to work with. You know, because a lot of people go on that ride, and that takes real work. You know, and part of my LSD journey, and the one I'm talking about recently, the recent death trip that I'm on, did bring that stuff up, and I just kept looking at it and go, I don't know. If I don't want to buy that. I don't want to go there. Which is an amazing thing. And I just said, you know, I took a breath. I just take a breath, which is what I do. And I say, please help me to surrender. And that voice goes away. It's not more powerful than the breath and the surrender. It's not. It may be up, you may have to work really hard, but that's the work and that's the practice. And if you do it, you'll be so grateful to Rudy you won't believe it.
I was just going to share that a lot of your perspective is also in the tradition represented from the figure behind you, just because for Tibetans there was never a Tibetan Buddhism. There was just like, their word was like insider, like those that go within versus outsiders, right? And so I just wanted to share that.
I know.
There's a lot of like, there's a lot of levels too, and at the uppermost level, they say all that other stuff was, you have to let it go.
Absolutely.
And it just becomes really simple. So I just wanted to share that.
I absolutely understand that. There's a reason I love Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism. I'm very drawn to them because I know they know. But then there are the people who believe in Tibetan Buddhism who are thinking if they do this and do that and do this, then they will still escape the whatever, the dissolution of everything. And so the trick is to go to the place that they're trying to get you to, not to go into the formalities around it that make you feel secure. Because that's problematic. And I know it's in every religion. People feel if I show up at church every Sunday, I'm saved. It's not like that. It's good. That's not a bad thing to open and be aware of all that stuff. But the reality is the inner being, the place very few people tend to go to regularly, especially in our culture, has the things that the soul needs in order to thrive. And if you don't go there, you don't want to learn it on your deathbed. You don't want to try to learn it on your deathbed. That's all I'm saying. And God knows that's where most people learn it. And some people may pull it out completely on their deathbed. I don't know that that's not true. But I do think in this life that we're living, go there now if you can and see what it has to offer. I find it has a lot.
There's also the first book I read that taught me to meditate before you were my first meditation teacher, living teacher, was the Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Suzuki Roshi. And there's a line in there, in the beginner's mind there's many possibilities, in the expert's mind there's few, and that seemed to kind of be a quintessence of what you're communicating.
Beautiful, that's beautiful. It's so hard to be dogmatic on any level, and I'm not trying to be, and everything I'm saying can be taken with a grain of salt. That's all I can say. But it wants to get said, and I cannot not say it. And do with it as you will. I have no hunger to be the voice of something for anybody. I am led to share this thing as best I can, and anybody who feels at all benefited by it, come back. If you want, I'll just give you a hug. It doesn't matter. If you don't want to come to this, I don't care. It's like all I want is to serve something that loves us as best I can, as a vessel of that love, period.
So we've been talking a lot, and I'm getting a sense of really needing to like let go. I'm kind of getting a sense of my investment of worldly stuff, and even though not so much maybe appearances by my own angle that I'm very invested in, but at the same time I still feel like I have a bunch of like karma or potential or whatever that is like I don't think is gonna go, easily in any sense. I'm wondering how to, I guess, detach from
No,
it.
no, let me show you what Rudy did for me, just as an idea. One, he told me how to build these ceilings and put in the studs and put on wallboard and do all that. It was really important. It served him, it served this very room that we're in. How to fix the pool, which no longer is there, but how to do all that kind of stuff. Rudy wrote a group of songs, and he asked me to write a play, or to go around the songs. I had never written anything before that, but he knew I wanted to be a writer who didn't write. So he said, write me this play, which I did, called Big Black Rainbow, bizarre play. But I did it, and it was the first thing I ever completed. It didn't, Joseph Papp's Public Theater did not want to produce it, but we did get music done by guys who were in the class who wrote some very interesting music for the songs. It never went anywhere, but he didn't care, and it began my career. And I had to go in the world, and he led me to that threshold to do what I had to do karmically in this lifetime. You're not here to escape your karma, you're here to fulfill your karma. And what you will discover as you try to fulfill your karma is how it takes stuff away and completes it and frees you. It doesn't lock you into something, it's over. And so living this life is not meaningless. I mean, it may prove to be in the ultimate sense, but while you're here, you need to do what's in front of you. And Rudy said, if it's in front of you, it's yours. And he put stuff in front of me to make things happen. Rudy did amazing things. I told him I wanted to well, Blanche and I were going to get married, and the first thing that happened is, Blanche went to Rudy and said, I'm not sure I should marry Bruce. And Rudy said, you probably heard this, he said, Blanche, you're just going to meet another schmuck just like him, so you might as well marry him. So he saved our marriage. Then I didn't know where to get married. He said, well, use my house. And then my mother-in-law said, well, who's supposed to cater? And Rudy said, don't worry about it. So my mother-in-law did nothing but worry about it. 2 weeks before the wedding, he goes pot roast, chicken, fish to people in the class. And the whole class provided food. My mother-in-law had to do nothing, and Rudy simply made a wedding for us in his house. This is Rudy, and I'm one person, two people, Blanche and I. We're two people. I don't know what he did for everybody else, but I know we weren't the only ones. We had a apartment, and they were kicking us out of our apartment just as we were going on our honeymoon. And I didn't know what to do. I said, Rudy, what do I do? And I can't go on the honeymoon. I'm going to have to go look for an apartment. He said, go on your honeymoon. We'll find you a place. I come back from Europe with Blanche, and we go back, and we have days left in our apartment. And I go, oh my God, and I'm looking at newspapers and trying to figure out where to go. And then finally went over to Rudy. He said, I have your apartment. It was this gorgeous, beautiful apartment on Greenwich Street in the village. Well, that was another issue. The entire apartment was painted black, including the tub. So it was a very, very strange place. But it was an amazing place in an artist co-op. What? Like the play. Yeah, right, exactly. They read the play. So it was amazing. This is Rudy, and I'm trying to answer your question, which is basically, you cannot avoid karma. You cannot avoid doing what you should be doing, whatever that may be. Most of us stumble through life and we don't know. Some people have stuff they need to do. Some people can do just about anything. I always say, if the universe guides you, follow it. If it doesn't guide you, you're on your own. Figure it out. It's okay. You won't go wrong. But if it says turn right and you don't, that's your problem. But if it does say, get this job, do that, do it. And if it doesn't say, you can get that job or a different job, and you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You're young still, and you have a whole life and a whole, God knows what, ahead of you. I think all wonderful stuff personally, but I think you're going to have to find out what that is and do it, whatever it may be. And the little we've talked about all sounds good to me. You're going to be helping people, and I think that's, for you and Wendy, that's incredibly beautiful, really beautiful. So fear not. Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
For some years I've been bemoaning the fact or the opinion that there's not many sannyasi, well, practitioners in North America that have taken Mahasamadhi or talked about it or planned it or whatever. And I would just assume you'd be planning your own Mahasamadhi.
I'm not planning anything. At all. At all. Including, I mean, all I know now is that somehow.
Do you have,
Pardon?
you've had no vision about how you will
No.
pass?
No. I mean, my mother died like that with a stroke. I have a feeling it could easily be that. I don't care. I don't care. I'm more ready now than I've ever been, but you know, it could be that moment I will not be so ready. Who knows? Who knows? I just know that I love this energy. I love this inner space. I know that it's percolating. I think it's speaking its voice. I get to hear it as it's spoken, or as Blanche says, Bruce, listen to some of your talks, because it's a real thing. It's a real thing, and that's all I know.
But wouldn't you agree that Rui took Mahasamadhi?
No, I don't understand any of that.
No?
No, not at all.
I have one more question. Because when you say like, you know, I feel ready for it, but you know, but I don't know, maybe I'm not, who knows? There's like a you're not betting on yourself, and I'm wondering why you don't do that.
Bet on myself?
Yeah.
What self? The
Well-
personal self?
Yeah.
I have no clue.
Huh.
I have no clue. And I don't know anything. I don't know anything. So even the word Mahasamadhi, I don't know what to say with that. All I know is it's a great concept. Rudy may have taken it, he may not have taken it. He knew he was going to die. That was always very interesting. He had told a lot of people that he was going to die in an airplane crash that weekend. He thought on the way to Europe. It turned out to happen, you know, a day earlier or two. But he knew something. I walk around like I'm going to die every day. I tell Blanche, I think this is my last day. I do it all the time. I don't know why or how, but I said I'm not going to get through the day. And it's my drama sense.
And that's been the last 40 years?
Yeah, it's gone on for a long time. Yeah. So, yeah, and that's why you shouldn't listen to me. But on the other hand, you know, I am going to die one of them, and I don't know
You'll
how.
have predicted it.
What?
I said, and you'll have predicted it.
Well, I will have, and not only that, I will predict it for all of you. It's all going to happen.
Through your talk, I make a note in my mind, and I'm thinking about, you know, really what it comes down to a lot is, you know, you're supposed to be really living this life to the fullest, on the journey. It's that old cliche, you know, it's all the journey, not really and I made a little note to that effect in my book, but I misspelled, I was writing, enjoy the ride. But I made a mistake, and I wrote, enjoy the ride. So that's what you enjoy.
Yeah, I like it as a verb. Let's all joy, and it's real. I cannot believe, after 50 years, that I'm the one sitting here talking to you guys. I cannot believe it. That was not in the cards for me at all. I don't know why I'm the one here doing it. Clearly something's coming through, or you probably wouldn't be sitting here. But I do know it makes no sense. Karmically, however, I have enjoyed and do joy the ride a lot. And I also have found a capacity to love. That's pretty wonderful. And you are all embodied in that love. I really love you guys. And you know, this is going on forever. So let me stop it. And you can all call me. You can all come to class. You can all visit. Yes.
You know, I just kind of wanted to point out things. I have memories of you saying things that contradict what you're saying.
Okay.
So I just want to point out a few. You've often said that you always knew you wanted to teach. You know, and you.
I can't hear what you say.
That he's often said that he knew he wanted to teach back when he was studying with Rudy and after Rudy died.
I can explain that. Yeah. Go ahead.
And you've always known how to kind of ask for direction and follow it to an unusual degree. You've always had faith and kind of lived that way.
Always is a
Pretty
long.
amazing. I mean, all your stories about going to Hollywood and Blanche selling a house and all that, that's incredible. Following direction, like most of us try so hard to learn how to do it.
Oh, and
I just have to
Josh,
say,
yeah.
that really contradicts contradicts.
It really
on
doesn't.
some
I can make it
analogy.
I can make it non-contradictory. Oh my
I
God.
have to say something, we have to read Emerson. I forgot the exact aphorism, but right, contradiction, you know, it's
But
very
there's,
important
but I'm trying to say,
contradict yourself.
there really isn't a contradiction. You have something you wanted to add, and I'll try to
I was
end
just
this.
Joshua just recently told me, I didn't know the story of like, of Ari's conception, which was like all kind of like a mystical sign.
Oh, totally.
That was kind of amazing hearing
Yeah,
the story.
yeah, there's a lot of stories. I wanted to teach once I was a student of Rudy's, and he was making teachers. I wanted to be a teacher, but he did not make me a teacher. And I may be a lesser teacher because he didn't make me one. Michael Shoemaker made me a teacher, but the desire to teach was to be able to be closer to the expression of this energy, and I really wanted that. And when I asked Michael if I could teach, walking down the streets of Bloomington, and I expected him to say no and tell me why, which is why I asked, in fact. Instead of saying no and you're to this and to that, he said, sure, start tonight. And I went, and I said, well, what do I do? Well, don't you teach me how to teach? He said, no, just sit there. You'll know what to do. And that's exactly what happened. I sat down in front of 75 people, and this energy just took over. And that was beautiful. It was not, I wanted to teach because I expressed a desire to teach because I wanted to grow. And I didn't know how else to do it. That was the story for me. And I forget the other piece of what you were saying. I was going to come up with an answer to that. But
Oh, just how you've always kind of asked and followed direction.
yeah,
That's been part of your life since?
I have. A lot of that was post-LSD. The early stuff was pretty not certain. The LSD experience was a directive. It came so loud and clear at the end of that journey, where I died, I think, and came back. Who knows? But I came back, and when I came back and found my finger forming and my elbow in the chair and the wall and all that stuff, and there I was, and I said, why? Why am I back? And this voice said with complete clarity to tell people what you saw. I had a mission, and I followed that mission no matter how often I was led into possibly going in other directions. I never did. I just did what I was told from that time on in my life, and that's all I want to do. I like that GPS. It's really smart, but it does go against the egoistic desire to think I should do this or think I should do that or whatever. It is very, it tests that. It tests your resolve. And for some reason, I think the universe is waiting to see how sincere we are. And so when I look at all of you sitting here after coming up here from God knows all over the place to have this class, I look at something up there in the heavens going, check. Good job. Good job for all of you, truly. And I mean, I don't know if that's true, but it really rings true for me, and it's really powerful. So, good job, guys. Thank you. Okay?
Thanks.
Thank you all.